So let's hop over to Chapter 4. Chapter 4 includes the idea that individuals and families are free agents of their own. It's important to remember that class is a large category of similarly ranked people distinguished from other categories in the hierarchy, such as traits, with traits such as occupation, income, wealth, and education to distinguish those classes. For this textbook distinction of classification, it includes a person's occupation, education, and income for each class. So I know it seems like we're talking a lot about class and those different steps, but it's really, really important to realize that not every class is the same throughout. So now that we've broken down the core nations, the semi-peripheral, and the peripheral, we're going to look specifically middle class and lower middle class mixed together. I think they could have broken up the middle class and the lower middle class because that's quite a big jump from 70 to 40,000 a year in income. But it is their information, not mine. And the working class represents about 30% of the US population. So next you have the working poor, which include jobs in service work, labor, and clerical activities. They have education with some high school attendance. It doesn't necessarily mean that they did graduate high school. And their income is around $25,000 a year and includes 13% of the US population. And lastly, you have the underclass, which are unemployed individuals or those who are working part-time. They may be dependent on public assistance or other government subsidies, and this includes their income, which could be around $15,000 a year and may include 12% of the population. So some notable things about class in America that I wanted to touch on before I finish up with Chapter 4 is that most Americans describe themselves as middle class, which is actually downgrading or dismissing the significance of class and implying that they should be judged solely as individuals. A lot of times you'll hear people just say that there's an upper, middle, and lower class. People forget about the working class, or that it's actually broken down into a 6-class scheme instead of just those 3 nowadays. So a lot of times people will say, oh, I'm a part of the middle class, just so they don't have the stigma which is provided to the working class origin. Helping with that is the mass media, which pays little or no attention to the working class and unions. And this is a part of what your text talks about with media framing, which is the process of packing information and entertainment in order to produce a distinct impact on a specific audience. So the last thing I want to look at is liberal capitalism and mobility, which is contained on pages 86 and 87. And so the question is asked, what is liberal capitalism? We've heard of regular capitalism. Well, liberal capitalism is the combination of a democratic political system and a capitalist economy supporting free trade and unrestricted economic competition. It has received widespread endorsement because it has opened up the doors for individuals to pursue their personal plans to obtain wealth and success. Americans support liberal capitalism as well as both major political parties who are committed to the system of liberal capitalism. Now, why is this important? Because liberal capitalism gives the people the idea that the American dream still exists. But your text asks, where is the American dream? Some things that affect the American ideology include social mobility, which is the movement of an individual or group up and down in the social hierarchy, such as a class system. And we've talked about that before, especially in the introduction to sociology class, about what is available for a person to move up or down in their social mobility scale. And also, there's intergenerational mobility, which is a measure of a social mobility comparing a child's and a parent's class location. So, that is something where it is the social mobility is looked in a bit further based on the generations that you've come from. And then lastly, you have structural mobility, which is a type of social mobility where either technological or institutional change creates an increase or decrease in jobs within a certain class. So this talked about the 1970s, the introduction of computers, and within the automotive world, how it affected white collar jobs and blue collar jobs within factories, whether or not companies needed to downsize the number of workers that they have since they had computers to be able to do different types of work. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know, but that's all I have for chapters 3 and 4.